This is Majinoni, and here's my reviews for X-Men Schism number 3 of 5, Ultimate Fallout number 6, and here comes Daredevil number 2. Now, I'll do Daredevil one first. Daredevil I'm kind of torn on. I'm enjoying that it has a fresh start. I like what they're doing with Daredevil's radar senses. The battle between Daredevil and Cap is kind of useless. This Cap basically is trying to bring him in, for the crimes he committed while under the influence of the Hand, but he just lets him go. Matt's like, well, I was like Bucky, but Bucky was controlled by somebody else, and I was also, so let me go. And Cap's like, well, alright, I'll let you go. So, at least I'll let you go for now. So I was like, it just seems like doesn't make sense. And then especially when you consider everything that's going on with Fear itself, it's totally out of continuity. I guess you can try to place it beforehand, but you can't because Cap has his costume and it's not, his Steve Rogers uniform. You can't say it happened after Fear itself because there's no reference to the fact of Bucky dying, type thing. So, I don't know. My guess is it's maybe supposed to take place after Fear itself. But if it does, then again, it's way out of whack. But anyways, from there, Matt goes, he's basically following the trail as to why people want this, why the lawyers being scared away. He digs a little bit deeper, and eventually what he does is he finds basically these, claw, but they're not really claw itself. They're like sound creatures. I'm going to say robots, but they're not really robots per se, and they're basically doing something underneath the building that the guy owns, who's in that middle of that court battle. But I don't know. It's like, I think it's a decent story so far, but it's not a wow story. I left out the special ending just so this way I didn't spoil it in case anybody wants to read it. But it's just okay for me. It's nothing great. Next up is Ultimate Fallout number 6. Now, I really like this issue for a few reasons. First of all, I like the cover. Then what we do is we finish out the Aunt May Gwen Stacy storyline where basically they go off to France. I personally I don't blame Aunt May for wanting to leave, considering you just have these reporters that are outside her house for weeks and they won't leave. And she can't get on with her life. She even gets fired from her job because she missed work for 2 weeks, and then now she's a security risk. Gwen Stacy changes her hair, which I think it's a nice look in the sense that she's trying to do something to move on. And I don't know if we're going to see these two characters ever again, but basically they take Tony Stark's offer and they go to France. Now, while there's that going on, then we find Kitty Pryde, Johnny Storm, and Bobby Drake. They go to the Morlock Cave. So this is where we're starting with the X-Men, the new X-Men storyline. And finally, we have the Nick Fury story. This was, I don't know, I guess you could say this was probably my favorite part of the comic. Because basically what it is, the best way to picture it is this. Imagine the calm before the storm, but in this case, you see the storm coming. Just imagine, I guess, being on a boat, and it's way too calm. The water's just way too calm, not even moving. But yet, you see in the distance this gigantic tsunami tidal wave that's coming your way, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And then, just when you think it can't get any worse, your engine breaks down. And in this case, Captain America quits. So, it's like, what do you do now? So, well, that part is setting it up for the future. What I thought was really, really good was his final interaction with Mary Jane. Because, Mary Jane's been on, trying to gather evidence to prove that Nick Fury and everybody was, basically killed Spider-Man, Peter Parker. But Nick Fury comes over to see Mary Jane, and he basically lays it all out on the table. He's like, I loved Peter Parker. You know, I knew his parents. You know, I wanted to, when his parents died, I wanted to find some way to help him. And then when he became a superhero, I wanted to make him the best superhero possible. I wanted to train him to become the best. But, you know, he basically failed at that job. And it was just, you know, he's like, look, you know, if you want to blame me, that's fine. You can blame me because I killed him. And I thought that, I'm not going to spoil the very, very last page, but it was really, it's like basically what they accomplished is they took all the emotions from the first issue, then they pushed it aside a little bit, so that way you can move on with the other key storylines, and they tied it all back in at the end. And I thought this was overall, I thought this was a strong series, but it's going to be one of those types of series where, you know, you don't really need to read, but I think it's going to be really helpful to understand the climate of the world and the Ultimate Universe. I don't know if I'm going to buy the trade for this one or not, but because like I said, it's not one of those types of things that I don't think I'd ever really go back and reread, but I still enjoyed it. And X-Men Schism #3. The one thing I have to say is I really can't stand with this book is I can't stand how they keep changing the artists. It's driving me crazy. There's no consistency. I can't get into a rhythm, a groove with it. It's like basically you're trying to relearn, you know, the wheel each time. Now, in this case here, the Hellfire Kids Club basically, you know, attacks the X-Men that are at that museum. And these kids are really, really good at what they do. And the funny thing is, you just see how arrogant the X-Men are, where they just see them and they treat them really lightly. And which I find kind of strange because, you know, you're in a museum and there's hostages. You know, it's not just the kids, but there's other Hellfire Club people with guns. So why are they treating them like they're like they're easy prey? They should take those things, the Hellfire Club, down quickly to prevent, you know, hostages or anything happening to the museum and the attendees. You also get a brief rundown as to who the kids are. Now, as you can imagine, the kids quickly take down the X-Men. And, you know, in a sense, I can understand why the X-Men get taken down, because these kids came prepared. But at the same time, it's like, you know, they should have been able to take them down before this even happened. But you can just see it in their attitudes. They just don't care. It's like they're simple peons. You know, even Emma Frost falls for a simple trick to turn her from diamond form to human form. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? You know, but whatever. And Magneto gets brought down pretty much the same way. He's like, oh, is that a gun? You think that's gonna hurt me? No, it's not a gun like you think. Bang. And Magneto goes down. And it's like, come on. Now, while that's going on, you have Wolverine was drinking, and he technically should have been with them, but he didn't go because he went out drinking because of his bickering with Scott. And you have whatchamacallit from Generation Hope, and she actually manages to take down all the Hellfire Club members and saves the X-Men. But at the same time, she doesn't do a good job with it. There's bombs in the museum. The museum blows up. So, you know, it's a give and take type thing. You know, while the X-Men won, there's still too much damage. But miraculously, none of the museum people died, only the Hellfire Club people died. Now, this causes problems again between Scott and Wolverine, because Wolverine was like, get the girl out. She's not ready, get her out. And Scott's like, just do whatever you think is right. Now, technically Scott's right. You know, you got to do whatever you think is right. But at the same time, she really wasn't ready, and now she's got, you know, a lot of baggage that Wolverine did not want on her conscience. And at the very end, you get the building of the Sentinel, which is, you know, I'm assuming this is the Sentinel that you see with the gigantic hand for the last issue. So I think they're doing a decent job with planting the seeds as to why Wolverine and Cyclops aren't seeing eye to eye any longer. Now, another problem I'm having with this issue here is, if you remember back in on one of the I forget which of the X titles it is, but one of the Kookaloos, she gets her face all totally deformed, and in this issue here, all three faces appear to be fine. Now, I don't know if she gets her face reverted back or not, but again, this is a very simple continuity problem. When does this book take place compared to the other books, especially when you have a major occurrence like a face that gets disfigured? If my guess is I'm hoping that they put her back, but who knows what they're going to do with that. If they don't bring her back, then there's a continuity problem or bad editing because they weren't paying attention as to what was going on in the other X books. Because I'm assuming this would have to take place after all the other X titles. So this way, when this is done, they can start fresh and end all those storylines. I'm liking it, but I don't think they're. Well, okay, let me rephrase this here. Well, I think they're doing some good things in the story. Like I said, the way they're building up the hate, the distrust, and the anger between Scott and Logan. I don't think they're doing a great job telling a story, overall story. I like the addition to the Hellfire Club, and the kids. I think that part was kind of creative, but I just don't think that they did enough. They're not doing enough so far to really make me totally buy into it. Because even though they're doing a good job at building up, okay, this is one reason why Wolverine and Cyclops don't like each other. Oh, here's another reason why. They would have disagreements in the past, and I don't see the one thing that will cause them to totally break up. I see things that are going to be maybe come back to haunt them, and then maybe ultimately lead to that breakup. But there's nothing yet. And anyways, I know part of me is disappointed. I like it. I read this quickly meaning as soon as I had a chance. But I just don't think it's wowing me. Not like Second Coming. Second Coming wowed. But anyways, that's my review for these 3 books. If you have any comments or questions, let me know. Rate the video up or down. Let me know what you think. And I'll have more reviews up later. So